just,
Why
I've
not
already
let
spoken
people
about
work?
that.
Why not let people work and then they could pay the rent themselves for properties?
I'm sorry, Helena. Yeah.
You then asked about cruise ships.
I'd like to answer to that question at some point.
Told you there no love lost between Braverman and Baroness Kennedy. But anyway, hello there, and I do hope you're all well. Now in this video, Baroness Kennedy wanted to grill Leaky Sue about profiteering in the asylum system, and also about allowing refugees to work. And clearly, Baroness Kennedy has no time for our hapless Home Secretary.
But thank you for that. And Baroness Kennedy again. Facilities. Accommodation.
Yes, I wanted to raise the issue of accommodation because you've mentioned the great expense of keeping people in hotels. And it's been the outsourcing of this responsibility to find accommodation for people has been a source of great concern in the inquiry that I conducted because the welfare component of it is very, very poorly presented to the people who are needing help. Many of the people who are asylum seekers have mental health problems, and I know that you're aware of that. If you're a genuine asylum seeker, and I hate even using that term, because the majority are, and when they're applying for asylum, they've been through traumatic experiences, and being here, separated from family and so on, and going through the processes is also traumatic. The companies to which you outsource the provision of care, basically to find accommodation for people and in turn to support them, are deeply inadequate. And I just wondered whether you had really done a review of what is on offer, because people have been left without proper mental health support. The migrant helpline, we had efforts to phone it. People can be on it and be told that they're number 60 in the queue. The provision of support is totally inadequate coming just now from the Home Office. And so I wondered what you had to say about the provision of support and help to people who are here, often waiting for years, unable to work. Why don't we let people work while they're applying for asylum? I'm just interested to hear what you have to say about the provision of support and help.
Well, we are accommodating 117,000 people overall who are in our asylum process. We're due to spend £3.5 billion in the 22-23 financial year on accommodation and supporting that population of people. That includes £2.7 billion on accommodating asylum seekers. That's £2.3 billion on hotels, and £400 million elsewhere is on other types of accommodation, like dispersed accommodation. So there is a huge amount of money that is going into accommodating a very large number of asylum seekers.
And a lot of profit is made by the private companies that you're using to do that. If you look at Companies House and look at the profits that have been made by those companies, it's quite shocking that the public purse is paying out to private companies and that they're making profit from it. Why aren't you using NGOs, other sorts of bodies that are not going to be profit-making to provide the sort of support that asylum seekers need?
It's not realistic.
Well, what's
with
wrong
respect,
with local authorities?
We've got, as I said, 100,000 people that we need to house. If you can point me to a charity that can provide 100,000 beds, I'd be very interested. There just isn't one. So the reality of the situation is that we are working very closely with local authorities through dispersed accommodation. And we have over 50,000 asylum seekers in the private rental sector. And local authorities receive funding for this accommodation of asylum seekers. That's not been sufficient. Thereafter, because we have duties to accommodate asylum seekers, and I'm not willing to let people be destitute and roaming, we have therefore had to use hotels, and we've had to manage that massive operation. Over 40,000 people are in hotel accommodation because we haven't got any extra places to put them. Therefore, there is a private sector element there. The state does not own an infinite number of bed space. that can be deployed for this usage, unfortunately. The
companies...
NGOs and the civil society and charities do not own are able to provide us with that capacity. So we've got to produce it somewhere. If I can just finish, because it's a very important point to make, and there are lots of misassumptions that are commonly made about this. And therefore, we are using private contractors to enable the bringing on, the identification, the procuring of bed space, whether that's in hotels or via local authorities, and that is coming at a considerable cost. Yes, I don't deny that, but the alternative is to leave these people destitute.
Yes. Private contractors are making a profit out of doing this.
Lena, again,
yes.
I think we've really got to...
I would ask that the Home Secretary applies some inquiry inside the Home Office to the amount of profit that has increased over COVID with the increased use of hotels and the profit that has been made by the companies that are doing this, rather than going to not-for-profit organisations, because it's not these companies that own the properties that you're talking about. They are accessing them and then make enormous amounts of profit and have increased that profit over the last few years while the COVID crisis was taking place. And it is quite shocking, the amount of profit that is being made, and that is the choice that's being made by government to go to private enterprises that are profiteering from the asylum system that you're running.
It's not a choice, it's our duty to accommodate these people. And if you can provide me with an NGO or a not-for-profit organisation who is a viable alternative, I'd be very interested.
It is an ideological decision not to use local authorities. You know that.
Lena, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move on. I want, because we've heard what both of you have to say, can I ask you a couple of specific questions, and then Baroness Chakrabarti? You mentioned local authorities providing accommodation. They really don't have very much accommodation, as I think we'd all agree. And the private rental sector is under considerable strain. I wondered if you could acknowledge that, because it is a problem. And also, the other day in the House of Lords, as well as the holiday parks and so on, surplus military sites that you're looking at, but there was mention of cruise ships which have been are no longer in use because basically they're about to be scrapped. I think it would be helpful just to know whether that is on your cruise ships, disused cruise ships are on your list. I don't want to discuss the merits of it.
Well, you mentioned local authorities, and I do accept the point that you make about local authorities. Our primary preference is to accommodate asylum seekers via local authorities, and that's why we want to significantly boost the use of that form of accommodation. It's currently 57,000 people who are housed via local authority dispersal accommodation. We have an ambition of 100,000. That is challenging. That is incredibly difficult. We need local authority support for that. We need to actually find the properties, and there, for many, many reasons, not just migration related, there are huge pressures on housing supply. So that is why we've had to go to the next option, which is hotels. And I've already spoken about that.
Why not let people work, and then they could pay the rent themselves for properties?
Sorry, Helena. Yeah.
You then asked about cruise ships.
I'd like to answer to that question at some point.
I totally agree. Why not allow them to work and add value to society? And for their own self-esteem as well, I suppose, and pay their way. And clearly, Baroness Kennedy sees straight through our out-of-depth leaky Sue. Now, I'm not sure whether our Cruella Braverman is swinging the lead, when she spouted on about no charity can provide 100,000 beds. But with her past record with the truth, put it past her telling a massive whopper. Do you? Also, when people are making massive profits from this, I kind of worry that there's going to be a detriment to the safety of vulnerable people. In other words, profit in front of people. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down below. And until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.